Dr. Rhonda Patrick here. I love indoor cycling, and it's not strictly an obsession with heart health or maintaining a svelte figure. No, for me, it's about mood and brain benefits. While virtually all exercise at any dose is probably beneficial, when it comes to full mental recalibration, for me, a 60-minute cycling session uniquely stands out. And it's not just my personal experience either. The scientific evidence continues to stack up that exercise may help prevent and treat depression. Attributing causality to the role exercise plays in preventing depression was difficult early on, largely due to the fact that many of the studies that linked exercise and depression were observational studies, which are always limited by confounding factors. If all we have to go on are observational studies, it's difficult to rule out reverse causality. Who's to say people that are physically active just aren't depressed to begin with? The good news is the case for exercise can be bolstered when we begin to look at some of the recent evidence ranging from molecular to genetic to randomized controlled trials. When the observational data begins to converge with some of the molecular and mechanistic data, and then ultimately with data from the randomized controlled trials, the case for exercise as a possible treatment for depression becomes very promising. So let's talk about some of that data, starting with genetics. When we talk about genes, it's important to realize that even complex behaviors, such as whether or not someone will engage in physical activity, can partially be influenced by genetics. That's where things start to get really interesting. One recent study examined over 400,000 individuals and found that those individuals with certain genetic variants that increase the likelihood that they'll be physically active were, big surprise, protected from getting depression. Moreover, these findings have a stronger case for causality thanks to a technique called Mendelian randomization. Mendelian randomization treats natural genetic variation like a randomized experiment. It assigns individuals to higher or lower mean levels of an environmental exposure, which in this case is physical activity. This type of genetic study is able to establish causality in a way that observational studies cannot, but only to the extent that these genetic variants influence depression directly through physical activity and not some other unknown mechanism.